Cuba's a failing nation. It has been for a long time, but now it doesn't have Venezuela to prop it up. So we're talking to the people from Cuba, the highest people in Cuba, to see what happens. I want the people that came here that were horribly treated by Cuba to be taken care of, to be able to go back and do what they have to do.
President Trump telling reporters he's in talks with Cuba to make a deal as his administration, ramps up pressure on the communist-run island, cutting off key oil supplies. The president declaring a national emergency over Cuba, citing threats to U.S. national security and foreign policy. We will talk with Cuban-born Congressman Carlos Gimenez coming up in a moment. Cheryl, President Trump is dealing with each of these bad guys one by one. Your reaction?
I absolutely hope that things can change for the people in Cuba. I was there a decade ago, and my eyes were open to how much they were suffering then. They're suffering even more now because they have been, to your point, more cut off from the world. This is the time, I think, for Cuba to really come out of the darkness. And look, by the way, the Chinese and the Russians have had an outsized amount of influence on the country of Cuba for decades, and that has got to end. I mean, this is communism, which we always talk about, gone completely wrong. At the other side of it, the national security argument, that is the best argument in all of this right now to figure out what we're going to do with Cuba because of the geographic proximity to the island right off the coast of Florida, if you look at a map, if anybody has, in recent times. I mean, it's just, it really is time. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you saw those memes, Maria, online of Marco Rubio, when they said, Marco Rubio learning that he's next be the next president of Cuba. You know what? I'd love for him to be the president of Cuba. I'm sorry. It's funny, but it's not. I mean, I just really want the people to just see change in that nation.
Well, I mean, on that point, the president has given Marco Rubio lots of jobs, Brylan, and he's been showing so much leadership on the global stage.
Yeah, I mean, my global politics assignment for class today that I'm actually missing right now, Maria, is about the Monroe Doctrine. And apparently, a lot of the left must have missed that history lesson. They were too busy studying gender pronouns to learn about actual history. But the Monroe Doctrine is very clear that we control our hemisphere. President Trump's bringing that back. The Golden Age is bringing back American history. What a crazy concept. Common sense in the Oval Office. I know the left is used to us being the laughingstock of the world, but thankfully, President Trump is reiterating that we will stand firm and strong.
All right. Joining me now is Florida Congressman Carlos Gimenez. He's a member of the House Homeland Security and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And you are urging a halt of all flights, remittances, and foreign oil shipments to Cuba. Tell us why.
Because we need to strangle the regime that's been oppressing its people for 65 years. No elections, no freedom of expression, speech, or religion, and so it's time for the regime to go. They have destroyed the island, so what we need to do now is some tough medicine for a little while so we can cure the patient being the island of Cuba and the people of Cuba.
And what will the president be advised to do with regard to the oil there? I mean, is this going to be a similar situation with regard to oil that we saw in Venezuela?
I think what they need to do is stop the oil shipments from Venezuela, which they already have. And then Mexico also ships oil to Cuba. That's why the president imposed a tariff of 100% any country that's shipping oil to Cuba. This is, we need to, like I said, we need to push them over the edge. This regime is at the weakest point it's been in over 65 years, and it's time for a change. We need a friend of the United States in Cuba, not an enemy of the United States in Cuba. And so I applaud what the president is trying to do in changing this regime, ousting this regime, because they are no friend of the United States.
Understood. I mean, the U.S. envoy to Venezuela, Laura Dogu, arriving in Caracas on Saturday to reopen the American diplomat mission in the country 7 years after that tie was severed. The president welcoming investment from China and India in Venezuela's oil industry. Watch this.
China is welcome to come in and would make a great deal in oil. We welcome China. We've already made a deal. India is coming in, and they're going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran. So we've already made that deal, the concept of the deal. But China is welcome to come in and buy oil.
So how do you see this working out, Congressman? The U.S. now is in control of this Venezuelan oil, and the U.S. will decide who to sell it to, whether it's China or anybody else?
Yeah, and also it's going to decide the price, too. So what's been happening before, Venezuela was selling their oil because it was sanctioned at a greatly discounted price to China. Now, China wants to buy that oil, great, but it'll be at market prices. That will affect China's economy, and so I'm okay with that. But I caution the president: we can't deal with this regime right now. It's Delcy Rodriguez is the interim dictator of Venezuela. We need to get to a free and democratic Venezuela. Then investors will come because they'll have guarantees that their investments will be secure and not taken like most of the investments that were taken by this regime in the past. And so I'm okay with it, but again, we need to move on from this regime.
Congressman, let me move on and get your take on the Homeland, given your responsibilities on the Homeland Committee. Border Czar Tom Homan is vowing that far-left groups funding and coordinating attacks on ICE agents will face consequences. Texas Governor Greg Abbott joined me on Sunday Morning Futures yesterday. Watch this. Tom Homan warned that left-wing groups are funding the attacks on ICE. Do you believe that this is domestic, or are these also tied to foreign adversaries like Communist China?
Something that we have been dealing with this in Texas, where we see funding come from outside groups, including George Soros. And I think one of the most important things the Trump administration can achieve is to get to the bottom of who's funding all this. It could be the protest groups, it could be the NGOs, things like that. But listen, I think if the Trump administration can find out who is funding all this illegal activity, interfering with the ability of ICE to do its job, that would be the biggest game changer that could be achieved by the president.
Congressman, what do you see here? Do you think it is outside groups? I mean, we're wondering if Communist China is involved as well, Congressman.
Well, look, it's similar to the George Floyd incident and riots that we had, demonstrations that we had back in 2020. I was mayor of Miami-Dade County at the time. We knew we had outside agitators coming in that were being financed by somebody. So I would assume, and I think the governor's right, somebody's funding this, or some people's organizations are funding this in order to cause chaos. And so they are. And so, yeah, we need to get to the bottom of it, find out who they are, and then bring them to justice, because it's okay to demonstrate. That's fine. That's an American right. It's not okay to interfere with law enforcement personnel trying to do their jobs. That's against the law. And anybody that is stoking that, funding that, needs to face justice themselves.
Well, I mean, I'm referring to Neville Roy Singham. There are reports that this American-born technology billionaire who now lives in Shanghai could be behind it. U.S. congressional investigators have alleged that he's used his network of dark money. But look, I've got to get to the partial shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson is predicting the House will end this partial shutdown tomorrow, even without Democrat support for funding for the Department of Homeland Security. What do you see happening here? The Senate passed that funding package Friday, funding government until September, but only funded 2 weeks of the Department of Homeland Security. Sir, your thoughts?
My thoughts are that we're going to pass it. I know that everybody, says that no, we can't because we only have a 1-vote margin, and always we're going to have people on the edges saying, I want this, I want that, in order to get my vote. But at the end, we have to. If not, we're going to be blamed for this shutdown, and now we have the midterms coming up, and that's really not a good idea. And so I think we will get to it, and I think there'll be some kind of negotiation with the president on what immigration enforcement is going to look like in the future. Unfortunately, we've been warning the administration about the enforcement that's been going on. We thought that there should have been a course correction a long time ago, and now I guess it's going to be forced on us by the Democrats. Unfortunately, we could have done it ourselves. We should have done it ourselves, but that didn't happen.
When you say course correction, what specifically do you want to see happen? What should have happened?
We should have been focusing on criminals and gang members and people with active deportation orders. I don't think we should have been focusing on people that have been here for a long time, grandmothers, et cetera, that happened to be in a neighborhood when you're doing an enforcement action. I think that that was a mistake, and I think it's coming back to haunt us right now.
Do you think we will see limitations then in that regard going forward? Or Tom Homan said now he's focused on criminals.
Yeah, and that's what we should have been focusing on from the get-go. Unfortunately, we went beyond that, okay? And we shouldn't, because not only is it, I think, is wrong, but it's also going to harm our economy. Many of these people are doing jobs in our economy right now, and so we need to find a path forward. I don't think that what we were doing was the right way. We should have just focused on that group that the president said he was going to, boot out of the country, which he was right to do.
You make a great point, Congressman. Good to see you this morning, sir. Carlos Gimenez in Florida.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Thanks.